But as far as the peace talks goes, I think it's not bad. I think the peace talks have been good. I'm surprised that America didn't actually turn around and say something along the lines of, it's top of the hour and there's a 60-second ad break. And if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe. That's one way to get an ad-free broadcasting experience. Like,
I forgot to
enjoy
$5.
For $5 or for free, you too can enjoy an ad-free broadcasting experience. Twitch Prime is free as long as, you got an Amazon Prime account connected to your Twitch account. Or if, you get gifted a sub if you're lucky. Here's a 1 minute ad break now.
69.
Really had to do it like that? No, I'm surprised that American media hasn't actually fucking dropped. Hey, thank you, Bill Vog, for the 5 get the subs. I'm surprised that the American media hasn't been like, they're getting their shit pushed in Ukraine, and that's why they're pulling out of the Western Front. And for no reason other than that, it's because they realize that they just simply cannot overtake Kyiv, and that's why they're doing it, and not because like their interest in the Western flank was a strategic one that allows the country to be split into two to make it easier for the Eastern Front, where the bulk of the Ukrainian forces are, to be cut off from resupply. That was one of your best. You didn't do that thing where you changed your tone. Thank you. Thank you to Zin for the 5 gifted subs, and thank you Hugo de Naranja for the 5 gifted subs as well.
Sharing my gauntlet of devotion to HasanAbi.
Strategic failing in Kyiv? No. The strategy is a failure regardless, because they were not able to take out the entirety of Ukrainian air support. So it doesn't even fucking matter. It absolutely has been a gigantic L from that front. So yeah, when you haven't been able to fully establish air superiority, when you got Ukrainian fighter jets flying every now and then, when you got fucking literally Ukrainian Bayraktars flying every now and then, it's a wrap. There's a TOS on TikToks? No, I closed all the TikToks. There's no TikToks left.
We at Skittles
just
apologize.
This one, but
Skittles apologizes.
Anyway, I don't even care about this. Hold on here. Let's hear what Kirby has to say.
He decided to basically relaunch some kind of attack on the city.
Again, I'm not going to predict what the Russian military plan is here. My answer to Bob, very, very small numbers that we've seen move.
Not the last Kirby you'll see on the stream today.
The vast majority of the forces that they had assembled around Kyiv are still there.
Going from the Ukraine isn't even a state that we're really just concerned with the eastern regions makes it pretty clear that an L was had. Except they never fucking... Oh, my God. Look, man, I'm not defending Russia here. Their fucking actions are completely unjustifiable, but the only people that were saying Russia's going to take over the entirety of fucking Ukraine were literally the American state. Okay? So remember that. Vladimir Putin saying Ukraine is one nation with Russia is just a justification for the people over at Russia. Their strategic interests in Ukraine are entirely different. There's never been an instance where a government literally will tell you exactly why they're doing it. Okay? There's never been a fucking interest. There's never been an instance where like a government will literally tell you, hey, we're invading because we're going into Iraq because we want to control their natural resources. Like, they don't say that. They say WMDs. You know what I mean? Like, understand that Russia is also a nation state. And therefore, they're going to do the same shit that nation states do, which is lie about their ultimate goal to their own fucking audience. Okay? But I do think that there was I think that there was multiple different layers, like decapitation with regime change being like the first and foremost goal potentially, so they could, do a fucking puppet state thing, like a vassal state similar to Belarus. Okay, that's certainly like an original, maybe an original goal. All the way down to separating the Eastern front to the Western front, but people stating that people stating that like Russia was always like interested in fucking taking over the entirety of Ukraine. Like you're forgetting that they literally said they wanted to take Ukraine and then Poland and then why leftist media quality is always shit. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it was Western media made it seem like they were gonna invade, Lithuania, okay, and Estonia next. Like, and they kept saying it over and over again, and that was not something that Russia had ever mentioned, but that went on for a very long time. And even if that never ends up happening, it doesn't fucking matter because who cares? You stop the threat.
8-month brain rot blammo.
Also, realpolitik time that Americans might hate to hear. As these eastern states get wealthier relative to the West, they're going to want to flex on these borders and international rules created by Yankees and Europeans. Like, and then you have this guy, okay? You have fucking people who are lapping up Russian propaganda. Like, bro, you're not like a fucking right-wing Russian national. Why are you literally, like, even people in Russia don't believe this shit, and you're over here, like, behaving like a hog for Russia. Russia wants to denazify Ukraine and demilitarize them, brother. Like, no, they don't. No, that's not a thing. That's not a thing. Shut the fuck up. If you're literally a leftist and you're like, I'm an anti-imperialist, I'm a leftist, like, you should never in a million years look to what, like, Russia is saying and be like, that's the real reason. When has a fucking state ever been honest about their genuine interest, dude? What is happening? Like, I don't understand how people are like Russian nationalists, okay? Stop saying that guy is fucking based. You're an idiot too, okay? Like, I'm sorry. You're not like a fucking serious Marxist Leninist by taking Vladimir Putin's word as like serious and legit. You're literally just a hog by a different flavor. It's so weird. You're just a Russian flavored hog. Like, I get really fucking annoyed. I get really, really, really, really fucking annoyed about stock dems and like Western imperialists, like not seeing the nuance, not treating like the foreign adversary. Yeah, famously, nation states hate right wingers. Chatters are awesome. Yeah, it's very frustrating to see. People who fucking say that they are like social democrats or anti-imperialists or whatever. I'm like radical. I'm an anarchist.
Almost
like
at
whatever
the
the fuck,
HasanAbi.
right?
Happy 17
All those
months, Big
people
Daddy.
just literally just devoid of any fucking nuance whatsoever, lapping up whatever you hear on MSNBC, but in a more radical capacity. That shit's really frustrating to see. But then it's also really stupid that like I hear people who are like, I'm a designated
Bet my
Marxist
life I
Leninist.
say something,
And that's
I will
why
get in
that means
trouble
I have to
with
take
hell up.
whatever the fuck Russia is saying at face value and believe it. Come on. Come the fuck on, dude. Anyway. Did you see the Adam Something's latest video about Gravel Institute? He does a good job of exposing tanky manipulation. I'm going to start banning people that just say tanky manipulation. Shut the fuck up. The Gravel Institute are not fucking tankies. And yes, I did see it. I did a 3-hour video on how silly and nonsensical his coverage was on the Gravel Institute.
5 months, what a ride has.
Okay? It's on YouTube. You can find my 3-hour video on it. Tanky is the fucking liberals, the rad libs version of saying left is saying neoliberal. Everything is neolib. Everyone's a neolib. Everyone's a neolib. So now rad libs who fucking think that they're like lefties or whatever will then turn around and be like, oh, tankies are bad. Tankies this, tankies that. Okay. Let's hear what
needed. I mean, this pandemic,
Kirby
as
has
you
to
well
say.
know, is a living thing, and it changes over time. So we're grateful for the ability. We're grateful for the chance that we had to contribute to this, and we'll stand by and stay ready. And again, at the risk of sounding redundant, I want to also point out the fact that you still have, more than 10,000 National Guardsmen that are still at it. They're still at it in the States. Nancy.
Thank you. I'd like to go back to the repositioning. Have you seen any territorial losses or newly contested areas around Kiev for Russia since it repositioned its forces? And also, have you seen any change in the amount or type of missile strikes Russia has launched on Kiev in the last few days that you feel would be tied to this repositioning or focused towards the Donbass?
We have seen the Ukrainians push back around Kyiv, particularly in suburbs to the west of Kyiv, where the Ukrainians have retaken ground. I don't have a list of the towns, but we have seen them retake some territories to the west of Kyiv. And as you saw, we talked about this not about a week ago, to the east of Kyiv, where the Russians were on the outskirts of Brovary, and the Ukrainians pushed them back to almost more than 50 kilometers away from the city. So we have seen them do that.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think the fucking
21
Pentagon,
months of
and I
programming.
cannot believe I'm saying this, and people are going to get mad at me.
To the rich. Wait, that's not right.
But I unironically think that the American State Department, especially like what they've done thus far, and the Pentagon has shown more restraint than the fucking think tanks, dude. Now, of course, that doesn't mean that they've actually shown restraint, but I think that their analysis and their interpretation of the situation is still, of course, ultimately reactionary, and they do certainly fucking see an opportunity there. Some of those people are directly in that turnstile, the revolving door between the defense contractors and the fucking Pentagon, but they recognize the threat of nuclear war way better than those bloodthirsty sick freaks in the fucking media and think tanks do, where all of the fucking talking points you're getting about Ukraine from the media or from like a think tank backed media are straight the fuck up, even more aggressive than the fucking Pentagon, which is wild to think. Okay? This does not mean I'm pro-CIA. They clearly are not fucking demonstrating restraint to the degree that I would want them to. Get the fuck out of here. But having said that, they are still, at the very least, aware of like the threat of the nuclear option being expressed, whereas think tanks don't give a fuck because it literally means that the people that pay them will make more money. Raytheon, fucking Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. Those are the guys who are going to make more money in this situation because everyone is arming. It's wild, dude. It's wild to think that like we have an arm of a theoretically democratic fucking form of governance that is supposed to keep the rest of the government branches in check, which is not a part of the government, but like is supposed to keep the government in check, operating as a fucking propaganda machine to just advocate for more fucking war nonstop. I am from Ukraine, from Kharkiv, and it's so strange to see you having stream and having discussion from the other side of the world. Is there a lot of points that you are not able to have idea because you don't even live in the region? Nevertheless, you are playing War Expert for more than a month already, says lol JKE. Bro, just go to a bomb shelter, brother, if you're actually in Kharkiv, okay? Instead of fucking LARPing as someone from Kharkiv, okay? You know? Don't worry about what I have to say here, okay? Maybe worry about protecting yourself, okay? How about that? Anyway, what about you being a tanky? Just curious. Do you really think you're right? But what? Why is everybody doing this? Stop. Stop trying to derail the broadcast. Okay.
which they have not been able to do. And as I think we've talked about in recent days, you've seen that the Ukrainians are actually scrapping it out for Kherson as well. So those were the three main groupings and three main lines of effort. They, up until recently, we had still assessed that was their plan, was to, as I said in my opening statement, to occupy and annex Ukraine using approaches on those three lines of effort. Again, now we think that they're going to prioritize the east. They have been stalled in the north. And the progress in the early days they had made in the south, they had made progress. Now that's stalled out. And we see them prioritizing the east. But I couldn't quantify that for you, Tara. I don't have their order of battle on that level of detail. Let me go to someone on the phone. I haven't done that yet. Let's see, Courtney.
Hi, thanks. Can you talk a little bit about the president's comments yesterday when he said that that U.S. troops, he seems to say U.S. troops are training Ukrainian military inside
First day on
Poland.
Let's Go Transgender Pride.
What kind of
Non-binary
training
pride.
are they providing, and how long has that been going on?
Yeah, Courtney, I think General Walters dealt with this pretty well at his hearing this morning in front of the Senate Armed Services Committee. There is, there's some liaising going on as the Ukrainians go into Poland, for instance, and they are we're transposing shipments.
Actually, it's not blurred lines between what is and isn't direct involvement. As a matter of fact, a lot of these lines are previously discussed. Not only are they previously discussed, but, and we've talked about this before, in Syria, for example, constantly the activity of, the activity is actually communicated with the other side. Russia and America will literally fucking tell each other where their troop positions are and where their fucking flight positions are as well, in an effort to avoid full-blown nuclear conflict. It's just how war is conducted. A lot of people are unfamiliar with this. I've talked about this before with Turkey as well. Turkey does this as well. Most countries do that. Most countries do exactly what I am referencing here, okay? Unless you're, of course, engaging in a non-state war with a non-state actor, in which case, like, you can fucking kill them completely. You can just like try to destroy them completely. So yes, our involvement as the United States has been to funnel weapons in, okay, from the jump, and then also obviously provide training with those weapons, because you can't just like fucking put a fire and forget missile system in the hands of a group of individuals without teaching them how to fucking use that. So that's one way that there's always been training. There's CIA training on top of that. There's like what we have seen so far with the CNN interview that we watched of those dudes that were like, yeah, we're just here, training these guys. We're not whatever. We're not a part of the military in any capacity. We're just doing this out of the kindness of our hearts. But there's shit like that, obviously, where they teach them how to like, breach and teach them how to like clear rooms and stuff like that. But more importantly, they also teach them how to shoot javelin missiles, teach them how to shoot fucking NLAWs, all this stuff, man pads. Because otherwise they would never know how to fucking use that shit. It's not that easy. So, and a lot of that is determined by what either side is declaring to be a red line or not, with the ultimate fear of nuclear arms being used, right? So that's pretty much it. They have directions on the side. It doesn't matter, man. What the fuck do you mean? Bro, what are you talking about, dude? Do you know how, like... You make it seem like it's that easy and that everyone has the same technical proficiency.
It's funny, BCU was still more right than US intelligence.
Like, this isn't a fucking IKEA table. When you fuck up, a javelin, you can, you know,
Representing
explode
past
something that you're not
reference.
supposed to. When you fuck up an IKEA table, that's it. You're just fucking up an IKEA table. You can't, like, you know, put food on it. Like, the consequences are minimal in comparison to fucking up shooting a rocket.
That is contested. I mean, you saw the Ukrainians basically sank one of their amphibious ships in the port there of Berdansk. So not only did they not manage to take Kyiv, they've not managed to take any population centers, and the Ukrainians have been fighting back very hard. So it's hard to see how they are succeeding in any one place, except at the death and destruction they're causing to these population centers and to the civilian population. I mean, and that's something we can't lose sight of. Megan.
So about 14,000 troops you guys have committed to sending to Europe in one way or another, either for NATO or to individual countries. And there's a few thousand left over from who's actually been sent, who you've announced that you're going to send. Are you still trying to get up to that 14,000 number? Are you still looking to source units to get there? And do the peace talks have any bearing on whether you're thinking you're going to send more people or not?
Yeah, it's not like the 14,000 is a goal here. The secretary wanted as many options available to him and to the president, and so we put someone prepared to deploy, and we sent someone forward. It is about options. It's not about a number goal. It's about capabilities and making sure that we've got the right capabilities. So we're constantly reviewing that. And not that you asked this, but as a matter of fact, I can let you know that that you've all been tracking a Marine Corps exercise, Cold Response, up in Norway. So I can tell you that a command.
Like, for example, part of the Ken did a piece on this with The Intercept, right? And he was talking about it. I was listening to it earlier this morning. Like, part of the intelligence sharing, even with Ukraine, according to the State Department at the very least, or according to the Pentagon at least, is, for example, just information sharing on defensive posture and defensive positions. And never actually information sharing on offensive positions. If it's ever an offensive position information sharing situation, it's usually delayed. Now, my personal suspicion, my speculation is, and people will fucking eat me up for this a little bit, is that OSINT is already being utilized to, basically do the information sharing on Russian positions ahead of time, led by the government, you know what I mean? So it's like, hey, it's out there. Oops, what are you going to do? Right?
Thanks, Hasan, for 15 months.
Rather than directly giving it, to the Ukrainians, okay? But as far as drones, as far as information sharing goes, there are limitations to what they officially say they share. They don't actually offer forward Russian positions to bomb or strike targets like we do in Yemen, for example. But
I don't even watch anymore, but too lazy
pretty much,
to cancel.
Pretty much that's it. And they've been doing this non-fucking stop.
More like Nazlols, am I right?
What's the probability the U.S. is just going to stage an attack like Vietnam just to get themselves more involved in this war? Well, in Vietnam, it was a proxy war the other way. So, no.
Hassle.
The United States entered Vietnam and fought against the North Vietnamese army, which was a proxy or armed and trained. In parts by the Cold War front.
14
okay.
months, Ajan Pogo.
In this situation, Russia has already entered Ukraine. America and Russia fighting one another is something that everybody wants to avoid. That's why the Pentagon is also very very careful in its messaging. Yeah, it's pretty funny that the Pentagon has like a gigantic budget. And they can't even, it looks like they're shooting in the Matrix over here.
Tank this sussy.
You're missing the part. Vietnam was not a proxy war for the communist movement. It was the movement itself. No, you guys are missing the part where the two actors in Vietnam were not America versus Russia directly. Okay? And that's exactly what's going on now. It's not.
Hassle.
Now it's Russia versus Ukrainians who are being used as a proxy by the Western states against Russia. And this isn't like any kind of, you know, conspiracy or any sort of like this isn't like a pro-Russian take. This is, Americans say this all the time. Like the American government says this all the time. What do you think it means when they say like, this is not just for Ukraine. This is for like ending Russian sovereignty. This is not just for Ukraine. This is for all the Baltic states. This is not just for Ukraine. This is for the security of Europe. That is literally just Americans admitting that they want to use Ukraine as a defensive measure against Russia and cripple any sort of like sovereignty that Russia might have over that territory. That's it. So, you know, something to consider. All right, let's get into it. Russian negotiations call new peace talks constructive.
High-stakes peace talks between Ukrainian and Russian negotiators have shown some signs of progress. The talks in Turkey ended a short time ago. Russia's deputy defense minister says the country has agreed.
Bro, they did it at the Dolmabahce Sarayı, which is a very nice place.
To drastically decrease its military activities in the areas of Ukraine's capital of Kyiv and a major city in northern Ukraine. It comes as Russia unleashes more airstrikes in southern Ukraine. A live webcam captured the moment a missile hit a government building in a city in the south. You can see the smoke from the blast on the right side of the screen. And with the footage slowed down, you can also clearly see the missile itself flying through the air. The strike left a gaping hole in the building, and Ukrainian officials say rescue teams are now searching the rubble for survivors. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky says his forces have reclaimed the city of Irpin near the capital. Ukraine.
What is this music, bro? It's crazy.
Ukraine's military has released videos showing its troops pushing through that suburb. Some elderly residents who left to escape the fighting have now returned and reunited with family members. And let's go to Terry Moran now, who's live in Lviv, Ukraine, with more on this. Terry, Russian negotiators called today's talks constructive, and the Ukrainian delegation said enough progress has been made to now involve Presidents Zelensky and Putin. How big is that?
It's big. It's clear that things are moving quickly, finally, on the negotiations front. This is a major de-escalation in this conflict if Russia abides by what those negotiators have said, and that is a big if. We're dealing with Vladimir Putin's Russia. He said he wasn't going to invade. He had no intention to invade. He lies. But these negotiators came out and said that Russia will drastically reduce military activity around Kyiv and around the northern city of Chernihiv. And that in itself, they said, was a gesture in order to, quote, increase mutual trust for future negotiations to agree and sign a peace deal with Ukraine. Essentially, this is Russia saying, yeah, we got to cut our losses. Their original grand goal of sweeping in and taking over this entire country has been soundly stopped and defeated. Now, they do remain in control of key areas in the east and in the south, and that is where the tough negotiations will be. But hearing this news from the Russian negotiators, that they believe that President Putin and President Zelensky are at the stage where they could talk, where there's something for them to accomplish, is just a very big deal. And that in good faith, you can use that term with the Kremlin, they are going to reduce military activity around Kyiv. All this has led President Biden to take this very seriously. He has called in the next few minutes for a conference call among the major European allies who have done so much to arm Ukraine and to sanction Russia. This is a remarkable.
This is literally awesome, by the way. Like, This is a great thing. One, less military presence in Western Ukraine equals good. Okay, the ultimate goal is to make sure there's zero military presence in Ukraine, right? Zero Russian military presence in Ukraine. So this is a good thing, even though the American intelligence apparently, and I don't even know if that's like an inaccurate assessment or if it's a fringe, hawkish person and not more of like a more hawkish person inside of the Pentagon stating this, but they're saying that it's just to fucking recover their forces so they can continue to keep shelling. Do you think Zelensky will promise to stay NATO neutral? Dude, there is... Of course, dude. Of course. There was no NATO involvement. That part of the conversation was 1,000,000% America's doing, okay? And also the UK's doing. Like, that was not happening. Like, that was already never happening. And they couldn't even just make assurances. Like, they couldn't even, like, do a neutralization agreement. You know what I mean? Ahead of time. It's just so fucking stupid. Anyway. Isn't asking for a no-fly zone asking for NATO involvement, Hasan? Yes, it is.
Brain rot setting in.
And also, that was never going to happen either. So it doesn't matter. It's understandable that you can ask for it. You can ask for a no-fly zone, especially if you're Zelensky. Duh, of course you're going to ask for it. You're trying to save as many civilians as possible.
Months, old enough to drink the brain rot
But this
juice.
idea that, like, no neutralization could occur in a time when, like, there was never ever going to be NATO allowing Ukraine to join, especially because of France and Germany not being in favor of
18
that.
months. Does that mean 9
It's
months
stupid that
brain
Russia
rot
couldn't
part
really
two?
realize that
The
Ukraine was
answer
never
takes it
joining
from it.
NATO. That was never about NATO. No, dude. What? No, they knew that Ukraine was never joining NATO. They wanted Ukraine to know that Ukraine was never joining NATO. And the reason why Ukraine could never join NATO is because of what just happened. The likelihood of what just happened over the past 2 months happening to Ukraine was the reason. So that's the reason why they did that, to show why they could never join NATO. It's more so about, like, showing Ukraine and the rest of the world, like, what Russia's red lines are. In my opinion, it was not about, like, overtaking the entirety of Kyiv. I mean, that could have been a, cherry on top. But it was more so to show, like, listen, we will hurt you.
Club.
And for the record, that's why it duped a lot of people, a lot of analysts as well. Like, that's why it duped a lot of people, where people were just like, what the fuck? Because, like, everybody understood that Ukraine was never joining NATO, and everybody understood that Russia understood Ukraine wasn't joining NATO. So this escalation on the Russian end, instead of, like, using diplomatic avenues, it was ridiculous, out of pocket, if you will, completely unacceptable and unjustifiable, both for moral reasons, obviously, because, I'm anti-fucking war. I don't know if you guys are as well. Some of you don't seem like it, but also completely ridiculous, even from the perspective of like a strategic move, if you were to think about it from, like, a pro-Russia point of view. Sorry, but not correct. As a Ukrainian, I can only agree to full Rus army withdrawal. Sorry, but not correct. You don't know Rus politics enough. Here's what it is. I hate when people say stuff like that. Just tell me what your perspective is so we can have a more reasonable conversation about it, okay? A lot of Ukrainians in the chat lately, though. It's crazy. So many Ukrainians been following for fucking 5 days. Russian propaganda about NATO, but no, the reason why Putin started the war. Okay, let's see what it is. Putin doesn't watch TV or use the internet. He gets news folders and papers. Come on, man. There's no money interest for us Ukrainians. No, Putin has all the power. Oligarchs are afraid of him. He's right about that. Marauder equals looter. You can use that term as well. He's right about that. This dude is Ukrainian, probably. Kharkiv used to be the most pro-Russia city. This is also true. I mean, a lot of the stuff he's saying is like, he's right. So let's see what he has to say. No, I think this dude is like actually Ukrainian. I don't think he's like fucking around. But I want to hear what he has to. I want to hear what he thinks is the reason. What do you say? Putin annexed Crimea. So what do you say about the Gravel video? True or biased? I don't think Azov is Suicide Squad. What? I'm from Lviv, and I can say your analysis is straight up correct. If Ukraine does not join NATO but joins EU, does that make any difference? So the EU has additional security assurances. The EU has additional security assurances for Ukraine potentially, but even
2 whole years of brain rot. Hurrah.
What do you call it? But even then, them joining the EU is not happening anytime soon either. I'm sorry. It's just, take it from a motherfucking guy who is from a country that was slated to join the EU. Now, Ukraine has a better likelihood of joining the EU because they're white, and white is a substitute for the word Christian here. Okay? But even then, even then, I don't think they're joining the EU anytime soon because of their proximity to Russia. I'm from Kyiv. Your takes on the Russian invasion are on point. I think people are just lying now. I'm from Kyiv. Your taxes are good in most of the aspects of this war. That's why Russia lost 50,000 troops and lost artillery and tanks.
I'm Vega CBTW.
The reason is clear. If you took the time to understand Putin and actually watched footage of him from interviews from 1999 to 2005, in one particular interview, he pledged to reunite the USSR when asked about nuclear weapons. He said he would use them even if it meant killing millions in Russia. No, that I do believe. And even if I don't personally believe he would actually use nuclear weapons, he's going to fucking portray himself as one who would. That's the whole purpose of nuclear weapons. The more irrational you seem, the more the more people have to take you seriously when talking about using your fucking nukes. By the way, another thing that I think I'm right on, turns out that anti-war Russian journalist, remember when I fucking said that anti-war Russian journalist? I don't know. I haven't been able to figure out extra details on this. But remember when I said it smells like a Russian op, that anti-war Russian Ukrainian journalist? Apparently she's like out and about talking against the sanctions or something. Like the one that like came up with the fucking sign that said, stop the war or whatever. I'm trying to find out more details. I just saw only one tweet about it. But okay.
Do you think Andrew Schultz took this too far?
I can fit the true reason in one message. Dude, just write shit, man. Just write shit. I'm going to read it, okay? I'm going to read all the things you're saying. Just write whatever. Shouldn't we all be against sanctions? What's weird about that? No, I'm just saying that, like, smelled a little weird that...
To a clearance been ni kadar zarikoro KN.
when you see something on Russian television, okay,
17 months, these
just
nuts.
know that the likelihood that that was signed off by the Russian state is a super high likelihood, especially if it sounds random, especially if it feels like it was totally impromptu. That's all I'm stating.
Was poppin'.
Okay? Anyway, let's continue.
Effort against the world's second largest military power that seems to have been stopped and hurt sufficiently that it is now looking for a way out.
And Terry, what's on the table in these negotiations? Where do you think we could see this room for compromise?
Well, the one room for compromise, President Zelensky has already announced. He said that
Countries deal with ambiguity all the time. The U.S. has agreed to the one China policy while still supporting Taiwan. Russia could have just been a normal state actor and realized the reality
Thanks
that
for
even if we
informing
kept the
the
fake
masses.
door open for Ukraine to join NATO. No, dude. There's no like... First of all, you can't compare China to Russia. China's ties with the United States of America are different than Russia's ties with the United States of
14
America.
months of brain rot.
Russia is seen as a competitor to the United States, as an energy developer, whereas China is a manufacturing resource that we rely on heavily. Okay? So from that point, there's already a contentious relationship, at least from a capitalist point of view, between the United States and China.
HasanAbi, it's happening,
Or not,
Jeff.
sorry,
I
between
can
the
feel
United
it.
States and
The brain
Russia.
rot is
Like
setting
our
in.
oil
If I
producers, our
said,
gas
I want you
producers
to be the
want
one to
us,
do it, Chad.
no matter how economically unfeasible it is, to deliver gas and oil to Europe rather than allow Russia to do such a thing.
14 months.
Okay?
Let's go.
So that's one way that it's like a little bit different. And also you have to remember that like Russia also is not going to be as focused on long-term goals like China might be. You know what I mean? Because yeah, nations operate differently than one another. And most importantly, I think Ukraine as a threat to Russia's existence, like a Western-backed Ukraine that is heavily militarized and heavily trained and, you know, ideologically super aligned against Russia, is a bigger threat to Russia than the same thing happening in Taiwan against China. Does that make sense? So I think those are key differences between like America abiding by the Taiwan's like one state, like a unified China policies while simultaneously giving guns to Taiwan. Whereas with Russia and Ukraine, Russia sees it as a significantly larger threat than China does, as China sees Taiwan. Also, China is a lot more powerful than Russia is. That's just the reality.
that Ukraine would be willing to pledge neutrality, not to join NATO, in a deal that would see Russian forces withdraw to the territories that they occupied prior to the beginning of the war, out in eastern Ukraine and the Crimean Peninsula. Now, that in itself is essentially acknowledging that Russia will take those territories. But Russia's conquered a lot more territory now in the east and in the south. And it is worth noting that none of the language used by the Russian negotiators or their defense ministry includes Mariupol or Kharkiv or Sumy or Mykolaiv or any of these other places that they have seriously tried to seize and are still trapped in some ways by Russian forces. So the crucial question is, what happens to the territories taken by Russia since the war began? There's one other note. Ukraine has acknowledged that if it gets what it wants, it will pledge never to join NATO. That would have to be put to a vote of the Ukrainian people. But today, the Russian negotiator said, we don't mind if you join the European Union. That is a remarkable concession by the Kremlin, because not only this year, but back in 2014, when it was clear that Ukraine was heading towards an attempt to join the European Union, that was one of the...
I think that's, for the record, I think that is a a reasonable concession. Like, to say that like Ukraine can't join the EU is not the same as like Ukraine can't join NATO. I know that like is you can join EU but not NATO even a good deal? What the fuck do you mean, bro? Like what kind of take is this? Of course it's a fucking good deal. What does that even mean? What do you mean is that a good deal? It's a fucking great deal. What? Do you have to be a part of NATO when NATO is never going to have you in it anyway? What? It's just so stupid. Yes, it's a really fucking good deal, okay? It's a really good concession because like people have considered the European Union, or Russians have considered for a long time, the European Union to also be a red line, basically, which I thought was unrealistic and ridiculous, for the record. Always. Like cutting off a country from trading economically with, or becoming a trade partner and joining an economic union, for the most part, with the European Union is bullshit. Straight up. I know that also probably threatens the security of Russian territorial sovereignty or whatever, but it 100% is bullshit. Like, if the EU wants to fucking allow Ukraine to join, which, I don't know if they will, okay, then 1,000,000% they should be able to do that. Now, I am not the greatest EU fan either, okay? Not the biggest EU fan either, for sure. But that I understand a little bit more than some other leftists. This is actually a disagreement I have with even people like Chapo, for example, who are like expressly anti-EU, whereas I am not. I'm more of a fucking believer in like a one world government. You know what I mean? So obviously, some security and trade agreements have to occur for that to happen.
Thank you for changing
like
my life, Hasan.
in the same way that Yanis
discussion
Varoufakis
made me
believes
always
in,
realize that the top
even
of
though
the
he
hour
hates
ad
the
break is
EU,
always
he
going to be
believes
on its
in
way.
and understands the necessity for that sort of thing to occur. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, currently it works as a neoliberal. It works to reinforce neoliberal hegemony at this moment. That's all it does. It is hyper capitalist, and it's awful.
9 months.
And
What are we naming the baby?
but it could be used for good.
Maybe the real brain rot was the friends we made along the way. Heart.
So are you saying like the Illuminati? Yes, dude, like the Illuminati. You don't want Ukraine without NATO? What? That's not even true. Dude, you literally just made that up. That's literally not even remotely true. That is just completely just a made up thing that you just wrote in the chat. Okay? You can slap probably in front of it, but it's just not true. If that was the case, then France and Germany wouldn't be against Ukraine's NATO membership. Okay? I'm gonna just lie. Anyway, Turkey's a NATO nation that will never join the EU, and Finland is a EU nation that is not a part of NATO. So keep that in mind. Turkey will never be able to join the EU.
incentives for Putin to launch the war in the first place back in the eastern part of the country. So this is major movement on the part of Russia. Once again,
I'm honestly asking, are there nations in the EU that are not in NATO? Of course. Finland.
and if it can be trusted, it's possible this would be a pause of some kind. The negotiations would be a facade for them to rearm, re-equip, resupply, bring up conscripts, refocus their efforts. But right now, it looks like there's movement.
And Terry, the Russian defense minister had said that they will carry on what they call this special military operation until the objectives are achieved. So what are those objectives for Russia at this point?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, they've changed, clearly.
I mean, there was a point when France was not even going to be in NATO. So, like, plenty of people don't realize that, like, European countries were not as fucking stoked on NATO, both in its inception and throughout its development, as they are now, because now it's just the law of the land pretty much. So the idea that like NATO was a given for every fucking EU country or every European country that's not even a part of the EU but is in Europe, like that's not a thing. You know what I mean? There are countries that are not a part of the European Union that are in NATO, and then there are countries that are in NATO, or there are countries that did not want to be in NATO despite being a part of the European Union. So NATO was, France is one of the founding members of NATO. Yeah, except it doesn't matter because France also wanted to get out of NATO as well. So I'm right. France left NATO in 1967 and rejoined in 2009 with the condition that they keep control of their own nukes. Yeah. Part of the reason why, for example, European countries originally did not have like a really positive attitude towards NATO was because they saw it as like American control over Europe. No, it didn't, and I'm European. What? France never left NATO. Is that what you're saying? No, it didn't. I'm European. Like the French dearmament or the French taking all their forces out of NATO is not, it's not, I'm wrong. Okay, cool. Here. In 1966, due to the souring relations between Washington and Paris because of the refusal to integrate France's nuclear deterrent with other NATO North Atlantic powers or accept any collective form control of his armed forces, the French president Charles de Gaulle downgraded France's membership in NATO and withdrew France from the U.S.-led military command to pursue an independent defense system. However, he also stated that France would remain in the alliance even after the end of the 21-year commitment period in 1969 unless the fundamental elements of the relations between East and West changed. In 2009, France rejoined NATO's military command.
Brain rot.
And the reason for why they did that, is because of the reasons that I'm mentioning to you, which is, he was right. Oh, sorry. I meant like, they didn't formally leave. They just left their military command. Shut the fuck up, chat. Like, don't do a fucking semantics argument. Now listen to me. The reason why they were upset about NATO involvement was because a lot of people saw it as, once again, American control over Europe. But most importantly, they saw it as, and I'm not saying this is like the Baltics, that's different, okay? But a lot of the Western European countries saw NATO as a way to, one, have their foreign policy involvement like completely commanded by, completely controlled by America. But most importantly, they saw it as a security compromise. Like, because they recognized that if someone, if Russia was going to fucking start dropping nuclear bombs, they're not dropping it on America. They're dropping it on Europe. So, like, if America would escalate tensions with Russia during the fucking Cold War, then they're the ones that fucking, they're the ones whose security is compromised. They were like, what the fuck is this?
poggies.
So that's the reason why I'm French, and it's not that we wanted to leave the NATO. We just wanted to run the top of the hour ad break. Well, thank you. Part of the reason why they wanted to have more control over their own foreign policy with the USSR. So this was one of the main reasons why they didn't want to. What is this? However, West German Chancellor Helmut Kohl and American President George W. Bush wanted to unite Germany to remain in NATO in spite of less than 20% of West Germans wanting to remain in NATO after the reunification. Mikhail Gorbachev finally removed the Soviet objection, and the new eastern territories of Germany became covered by NATO on the condition that no foreign forces or weapons of mass destruction were located on them. Thanks, man. Anyway, so it's a fun little fact about NATO involvement in Europe and how different it was at one point, but I'm pretty sure none of that matters at this stage because, you know, Russia invading Ukraine pretty much fucking legitimized every fantasy.
Let's go.
Russia invading Ukraine legitimized every fucking fear that every European country could have had about this.
The objectives at the beginning, stated by President Putin and his military leaders, were to demilitarize Ukraine, to defeat its army in the field and render it non-operable at all. They failed at that completely. They got their hat handed to them by the Ukrainian military. The other major goal announced by President Putin was to denazify Ukraine. He had this idea that Ukraine was being run by Nazis, even though its president is a freely elected Jewish man.
Dude, I literally want American fucking war correspondents to treat American wars in the same way that they treat Russia, and then I'm good. I'm happy. You know what I mean? Like, I've literally never fucking heard an American journalist turn around and be like, weapons of mass destruction, my fucking ass. You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine just like the stated purpose of denazification being bullshit, which it is, right? It's just something that like the Russian leadership is telling Russians so that they can justify it in their fucking eyes, right? But it's like bullshit. It's bullshit. And then you have like a journalist just straight up being like, it's bullshit. It's not real. If they were to do that for American, for their coverage on America, I would be so happy.
Wanted as an EU country but doesn't qualify for NATO. Has slam.
Why Ukraine doesn't qualify for NATO? Because it has here, the short and sweet of it is it has territorial disputes with Russia, okay? NATO is an anti-Russia treaty organization, okay? It's the fuck Russia coalition.
Hello,
and it has a territorial dispute with Russia. There you go. That's it. Yeah, ultimately, fucking Russia saying they want to denazify Ukraine is no different than America saying that they were going to bring democracy to Iraq. Like, that was not the goal. That was never the goal. It's fucking bullshit. And it was just a way to, like, justify the war. Okay? North Anti-Russia Treaty Organization. Yeah, good one. Exactly.
Decided that was it. So those objectives have gone away. It looks like their main objective now is to hold the territories that they have taken since the war began. Diane?
All right, Terry Moran in Lviv, Ukraine. Thanks, Terry.
It is ironic that Ukraine is the most legit reason to be in NATO and the very reason disqualifies it. Yeah. Well. Also, Russia and NATO are not anti each other. What? Dude, come on. At least the other liberals in the chat literally fucking, openly state that no, it's like the fuck Russia coalition for the most part. What? Why can't they join then? Why were they not allowed to join? Come on, dude. I mean, this is like... This is ridiculous.
Every day you make me want to love myself more.
Relations between the NATO military alliance and the Russian Federation were established in 1991 within the framework of the North Atlantic Cooperation Council. In 1994, Russia joined the Partnership for Peace program. And through the early 2010s, NATO and Russia signed several additional agreements on cooperation. The Russia-NATO Council was established in 2002 for handling security issues and joint projects. Cooperation between Russia and NATO now develops in several main sectors, including fighting terrorism, military cooperation, cooperation on Afghanistan, including transportation by Russia of non-military international security assistance force freight, see NATO logistics in the Afghan war, and fighting local drug production, industrial cooperation, and weapons non-proliferation. It's like saying... It's like saying the Cold War or mutually assured destruction is like a treaty with Russia, and it actually implies cooperation with Russia because it's a way to ensure that no one uses nukes. You know what I mean? It's not a cooperative. It's not cooperation, but rather two people with conflicting goals having to work with one another because otherwise everyone dies. It's, it's a Mexican standoff, exactly.
9 months brain rot time has slam.
I'm so glad that the Afghan war gave assurances for Russia and give assurances for Russia and NATO.
I chat swoon.
Primary function of NATO is to bomb Muslim people? Okay, historically, yes. But the primary function of NATO wasn't to bomb Muslim people. The primary function of NATO was to, be the fuck Russia coalition, okay? But, of course, it has only worked in bombing Muslim people so far. That's literally all NATO has done, other than, overthrow or arm right-wing paramilitaries in Europe and cause terror, like literally right-wing terror in Europe, and destroy even like any attitude that any opportunity that even social democrats had to win in the elections. But
can't even get a text
also
back.
They have just fucking The first time they were like, oh, are you guys killing Muslims? We're going to bomb you. And then they were like, never mind, fuck that, actually. We should literally just bomb Muslims ourselves instead.
21 months of
So that's what they
while
did.
I work. Have a good
Afghanistan
day.
and Libya, come to mind. Also, I'm not a liberal. I'm a nationalist. Wait, what? What? I need to see more from this dude. What the fuck? NFC doesn't necessarily mean air to air. It's usually supported by large air missiles. They use cluster bombs, premature ejaculation on Russia's part. So you think he's doing this because of NATO and not because of the fact that he's Soviet, not Russian, and has always wanted to reunite the old USSR? Oh my God. Nationalist or not, I don't know if that's a half swastika on his profile.
Bing bong.
Nationalist equals Nazi Pepega? I mean, he didn't say he was a fucking Pan-African nationalist. He just said, I'm a nationalist. Most people that admit they're a nationalist in 2022 are just straight up. You made a comment about liberals and just pointing out I'm not a liberal. Okay, it doesn't matter. Okay. I thought nationalism meant you love your nation and are super patriotic. Yeah, that's just what it means. Not all nationalists are Nazis, but all Nazis are nationalists? Yes. Their levels of acceptable political literacy, chat. This is not it. Yeah, he's not. He's just a national socialist. I think he's not. He's just a nationalist socialist. Anyway, whatever. Okay, I'm giving this guy way too much fucking time here. But you know, not surprising that he also is like his politics as a nationalist are so similar to liberals in general. Anyway,
person talks going on this week between the warring parties, Russia and Ukraine. The Turkish presidential spokesperson, İbrahim Kalın, told me that Istanbul is going to host the next round of talks on Tuesday. President Erdogan said last week that Ukraine and Russia seem to have made progress on some of the topics of disagreement, including Ukraine renouncing its potential NATO membership, disarmament and mutual security guarantees in the context of the Austrian model, and collective security, the remaining topics, the regions of Crimea and Donbass, and removing obstacles to the widespread use of Russian language in Ukraine. Look, I sat down with the spokesman, İbrahim Kalın.
Türkler bak görüyorsun yine masadayız AK. Oğlum bak dünyayı kurtarıyorsunuz amına koyayım bak. Yerinizi bilin lan. Reis. Reis kurtarıyor, dünyayı kurtarıyor reis. Helal olsun. Neyi kurtarıyoruz abi, biz batmışız. Abi reis kurtarıyor işte, sus. Hepinize PlayStation 5 geliyor amına koyayım bundan sonra.
Who was present during those conversations that President Erdogan had last week. He has since had a conversation last night, as we understand it, with President Putin once again. But I asked İbrahim Kalın what was said on those calls and what these sticking points.
I'm just making jokes about fucking Recep Tayyip Erdogan being reis. Okay, Turks say, some Turks lovingly call him reis, which is like the chief. They call him like the chieftain. Okay, so I'm being sarcastic and over the top, like pro Erdogan as a joke, saying that he is literally, it's a meme. He's like winning. He's just saving the planet. Okay. There you go, Americans. Now you know Turkish memes.
That remain from each side. Given that these talks now begin again in Turkey on Tuesday, this is significant. Have a listen.
Sometimes positions seem to be converging on some kind of an...
By the way, low key, like, when I was younger, these motherfuckers could not speak English, okay? And now, literally every fucking foreign policy guy in Turkey, just straight up, I never expect them to, because, you know, abi adam minibüs şoförü gibi tipli yani, ama hiç löp diye yani amına bile koyuyorlar İngilizcenin, gerçekten helal olsun Türklere bu açıdan, maşallah yani, hani hepsi boktan ama. I'm just saying, he look like all these dudes that look like bus drivers are straight up just fucking ripping. You know, they're very good. I'm being fucking classist, and I mean they're bad regardless usually. But I don't actually know about İbrahim Kalın, but they're incredible at fucking. They're really good at. Speaking English, which is surprising. They didn't used to be like that.
Understanding, sometimes they seem to be diverging a little bit. So there are still important differences over these 4 issues. But in our assessment, the most difficult one, of course, is the territorial integrity of Ukraine, which must be protected, of course. The Ukrainian side cannot compromise on that, and that concerns Donbas and Crimea. Crimea was annexed back in 2014. The situation hasn't changed, but no one has recognized the annexation of Crimea since then. Now the Russian side wants both Ukraine and others, the international community, to recognize that. I don't think that's going to fly. That's a very maximalist demand from the Russian side. It's not realistic.
Ulan bu Türkler inanamıyorum ha. Bunlar şey gibi, bu Çin'in mesela Tayvan var. Türkiye'de de Kıbrıs var amına koyayım. Ne oluyor? Bu nasıl böyle laf ediyor? Ne oldu? İnanılmaz bir durum yani herhalde. Böyle laf etmesi komik geliyor yani bana.
Same goes true for Donbass. So that other 4 issues, there could be a few more here and there, you know, maybe they
kind of a weird thing for a Turkish, for a Turkish official to talk about Crimea being Ukrainian territory when, Turkey has its own issues in an identical capacity that is literally a direct threat to their NATO involvement regardless, by the name of Cyprus, Kıbrıs. The Kuzey Kıbrıs Türk Cumhuriyeti, KKTC. No, not Kurdistan, dude. No, that's not even, no. Talking about real conflicts, okay? Not one that is like, where America literally every fucking 5 years is like, all right, go kill a bunch of Kurdish people. Not that. I'm talking about conflict between 2 nation states. And not just like full-scale annihilation that the Americans 100% allow to happen.
Find a way to reach some kind of an agreement. But the leadership level meeting will require a serious discussion of Donbas and Crimea, because they go straight to the heart of the matter, which is Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty.
It's interesting because the Ukrainian foreign ministers actually denied that there is agreement even on the 4 sticking points that have been discussed at the president. There does seem to be a bit of disconnect between what the president was saying and what the Ukrainians are saying.
Our president was simply describing the situation, and it was actually a message to Moscow also. Look, if you can agree, negotiating teams can agree on this, 3, 4, 5, whatever points that we're discussing, then let's have this leadership level meeting, because we believe it's only through that meeting that this war will come to an end. President Zelensky is ready to meet President Putin. It's President Putin who has said no so far, and our president has said, okay, I'm ready to facilitate, bring the 2 of you together in Turkey or somewhere else. It doesn't matter. We are not trying to promote.
Arada İngilizce bilen tek bakan bu. Abi herif amına bile koyuyor yalnız İngilizcenin. Helal olsun İbrahim Kalın'a. Vallahi.
Turkey as a venue for this. What we are concerned about is to bring an end to this war a day.
Masada mıyız? Masayız amına koyayım. Masayız. Masada değiliz. Masayız. The irony, of course, is that so a lot of people keep asking in Turkish, like, are we at the table? And no, of course, Turks are not at the table. I'm saying Turks are the table. That's it. It's provided neutral ground, I guess, technically, despite being a NATO nation, which is why, oh man, I really do love how fucking psychotic Turkish politics is. Like, it makes no sense. Can you imagine? You got Russian leadership literally inside of the fucking borders of a NATO nation having a fucking a conversation. A NATO nation that is defended by Russian anti-air missile systems, that is currently selling a fuckload of drones to Ukraine to blow up Russian offensive positions. A NATO nation that has called on Article 5, I think, more times than any other country. A NATO nation that has literally gone to war with other NATO nations. And also with Russia. Like, not full-blown war, but like kind of war. It is literally the fucking... Turkey is like just an insane country. That's why I always say, like, it's impossible to explain what Turkey does to Americans, because it's just like, it's crazy. They do everything and anything, okay? They did. They shot down a Russian fighter in Syria. Like they literally, they're just buck wild, dude. Abi masada mıyız? Mimi bu. Mimi. Mekke Medine bizim imzalar atıldı. Nasıl? Pentagon Suudi'yi 9'a bölüyor. Biz masada mıyız? Bizim olmadığımız masa yok. Bu ne lan? Lan 9'a böldü Suudi Arabistan'ı. Pentagon bize veriyor. Oh no, what the fuck is this, dude? Masa biziz. Okay, I didn't know that. Apparently, this is where the meme comes from. This guy says, Mecca and Medina is ours. Signatures have been given. This guy says, how? This guy, he responds, Pentagon is dividing Saudi Arabia into 9. This guy says, are we at the table? And he responds, there is no table we are not a part of. Ya bir kere de aramızda kalsın. No, I'm gonna teach all the fucking inside memes to the Americans, okay? Lan çevirme, rezil ettin bizi amına koyayım. Ne olacak amına koyayım? Dolar daha mı kötü olacak? Götüne girmiş zaten. Ne olacak? Daha kötüye gidemez ki. Ne olacak? Eskiden hep diyordunuz ki çevirme amına koyayım. Dolar yükselecek diyordu. Ne kaldı? Nereye yükselecek abi? Ne kaldı ki? Yükselecek yer yok yani bir yerden sonra. Abi daha kötüye gidemez demek gidecek amına koyayım lütfen ya. Okay, anyway. But as I was saying, it is impossible to fucking comprehend the actions of the Turkish government in any capacity because it's just they do everything. They literally they fight every side of the conflict. They fight against every side. Dude, ISIS, great example. Like, you know, on the one hand, at the behest of the American government, they were literally fucking supplying guns to both sides of that conflict, both against ISIS and also sometimes for ISIS. Okay? So, like, it's just impossible it's literally impossible to fucking understand what Turkey is doing in any way. Like, they're just all the time, nonstop. Turkey's the opposite of Switzerland? Yes, exactly.
Earlier than it is necessary.
But the future of Crimea and Donbass is still outstanding. And at this point, do you believe that President Putin really wants to make peace?
If he wants to make peace, he has enough in his plate, in fact, to call this off and call a humanitarian ceasefire right now so that the negotiations can continue, you know, at the technical level, political level, and at the strategic level. We have not recognized the annexation of Crimea as like the rest of the world. In fact, even China has not recognized, as you know.
Tell him, Ibrahim. Tell him Crimea belongs to the Turks. Tell him the truth, motherfucker. Do it. Say it. We have not recognized the annexation of Crimea like the rest of the world. But unlike the rest of the world, we do not recognize it because Crimea belongs to the Turkish Tatars, the Turks, by way of the Tatars.
The annexation of Crimea. So the Russian, that's why I said Russian demand on that is very maximalist, unrealistic. They should really come up with some other ideas.
President Erdogan told his Russian counterpart to make an honorable exit in Ukraine and become, I quote him here, an architect of peace. Is President...
At the behest of Americans, come on. They did it because they're Sunni supremacists who want to murder Kurds and take as much territory as they can. Turkey administers the Al-Qaeda-run Idlib and also ethnically cleansed Afrin. Interesting you say that because both of those things are still true. So you didn't say anything that is like conflicting, okay? You literally just got upset that I said at the behest of Americans. Nothing in the Middle East is done. Especially when Turkey does something in the Middle East, you think it's not doing it because America either literally told them they could do it or straight up, forced them to do it even in certain instances. It's fucking ridiculous, dude. I mean, it's ridiculous, dude. It's ridiculous. We are America's lapdog. What the fuck are you talking about? Why do you think Turkey's in NATO? Like, what do you think happened there? Well, how did that happen? It's so stupid that you think that like Turkey would do anything. Turkey would do anything without America's know-how or literally prior fucking consideration or just straight up telling or just following America's orders. Yakında çıkacağız NATO'dan, merak etme, imzalar atıldı. Siktir lan. Masada mıyız?
To the Turkish president and describe the nature of those conversations that you have been party to.
Certainly, President Putin is listening to President Erdogan and to his advice and to his ideas and suggestions. You can understand.
No, he's not. This is so Turkish to be like, yeah, no, Recep Tayyip Erdogan has a big say in this, okay? Big say. You know what I fucking forgot, by the way, while I was having this conversation about Turkey and all this shit? To run the top of the hour ad break. So now I have to run it at 1:30 instead of 1. Just checked. Did not run the top of the hour ad break. Have to run it now. Okay, and if you no longer want to see those ads, all you need to do is subscribe or be from Turkey, because I don't think you run ads in Turkey anyway. Or you can subscribe for $5, or you can subscribe for free with a Twitch Prime if you want an ad. Did the US know about the S-400s as well? Yes.
As flex.
Here's a 1 minute ad break now. F-35'leri vermiyorlar abi. Biliyoruz oğlum, biliyoruz, evet. Turkey still doesn't recognize the Armenian genocide. Stop being stupid. What does that have to do with anything? What does that even have to do with anything that we're having a conversation over? I know, yes, you're right. But also, what does that have to do with anything about this conversation at all? Like, literally not even remotely relevant to the conversation. You just, that's not even what about us. It's a non sequitur. You just straight up just drop that in for no reason.
And from their point of view, that they don't trust most of the NATO countries, they don't want to talk to them anymore, right or wrong. But the reality is that someone has to talk to the Russian side, someone whom the Russians can also trust. Otherwise, this war can go on for months, for years, and the world cannot afford another prolonged war like that, and certainly we cannot afford another Cold War. We have to think of the steps that we will be taking to build a new security architecture after all this is done. How are we going to do that? How are we going to deal with all the security concerns of Russia, the Western Bloc, NATO, of course, Ukraine, and other countries? So President Erdogan is talking to President Putin about these issues also, just telling him, think in terms of the long-term consequences of this war.
President Putin's circle has been sanctioned heavily. Many have left Russia. Many are moving around the world looking for a safe haven. 2 super yachts belonging to billionaire Roman Abramovich docked in Turkish ports earlier this year. Are Russian oligarchs like Roman Abramovich welcome in Turkey?
We don't have anyone coming to Turkey who is on the sanctions list. Of course, we go by the UN sanctions regime. In this case, we have not applied any sanctions on Russia because we want to keep our line of communication open with Russia because, as I said, we will need someone talking to them at the end of the day.
So those who've been sanctioned welcome in Turkey?
No, they haven't come to Turkey, as I said. We don't have anyone. Abramovich has come to Turkey as part of the negotiating team, or not the team, let me rephrase it, as someone who has been designated as one of the negotiators.
By President Putin.
By President Putin. And as far as I can see, he's trying to play a role here. And we are in touch with both the Russian and the Ukrainian sides. And so we will see what kind of results they will be able to produce. But in terms of Turkey being open, to other businesses, etc. Yes, Turkey is open to other businesses.
So the United States has been asking allies like Turkey who've been using Russian-made equipment systems like the S-400 to consider transferring them to Ukraine. As I understand it, Turkey isn't prepared to do that. Why not?
Turkey, which has the second largest army in NATO, needs, of course, air defense system. We told the Americans and others, look, S-400 has been purchased. For us, that whole file is closed. It's done. We are not thinking of,
Kapattık. Aldık artık. Yapacak bir şey yok. Kapattık abi. İmzalar atıldı. Oh, that's so funny. So, for chat who is wondering, the S-400s are a big point of contention because Turkey is a part of NATO, but and also wanted to purchase originally F-35s from the United States of America, and they said no. That they they turned around and got the S-400s, which were anti-air defense systems, Russian anti-air defense systems. So now you have a NATO nation that literally has Russian anti-air defense systems. We also wanted Patriots. Yeah. So Obama Patriot'u vermedi, imzalar atıldı.
Sending it anywhere or that's not the way to resolve this issue. If you want to support another NATO ally, like Turkey, for example, you can support Turkey by selling Patriot defense missile system and other quality weaponry that Turkish army needs. We believe that in principle it's wrong for allies to sanction each other. I think this war in Ukraine has once again showed the significance of this principle. If NATO is to be united, we have to be united not in words but in action. That means that if you apply sanctions to me on, say, Patriots or F-35 or some other military defense equipment, etc., then what kind of alliance are we talking about?
I understand, but how difficult is it to, look President Zelensky in the eye or speak to him on the phone and say we've...
I love in the U.S. that after buying the S-400, there will be no F-35s in the Turkish skies, and Turkish official answer said with S-400 will be on the ground. Yeah, except Turkey literally provides parts for the fucking F-35, or at least did, if I'm not mistaken. Aselsan literally was like, that's the most insane part about this conversation is that, again, when you involve Turkey in the conversation, Turkey literally used to make certain parts of the F-35. And then America was like, we're not going to let you get F-35s because you bought anti-air systems from fucking Russia, okay? Because originally they wanted to buy American anti-air systems, and they the price that they were offering was way too fucking high. And then they refused to sell it. So then Turkey was like, all right, fuck you. We're going to go get anti-air systems from Russia then. Okay. And then they kicked them out of the F-35 development program and also refused to give give Turkey F-35s as well. Amerika paramızın üstüne oturdu abi. Bu arada F-35. Did they, Turkey might have even, yeah, I don't know. I think Turkey might have even paid for the F-35s and then they never delivered them. But yeah, to this day, Turkey literally fucking... Turkey still supplies F-35 parts. Well, I guess maybe not to this day. They might have kicked them out of that, but they might have kicked them out of the program. But so now America fucking scammed Turkey for those fucking bullshit ass planes anyway. The F-35 is already dog shit. By the way, that's the type of shit you can do if you're America, for the record. Like, and no one will ever question it. You can't do anything. Like,
Ketemin King.
dude, not dog shit. Lamau, I wish you would try F-35 versus any MiG plane. F-35 has a significant amount of problems, but I mean, I don't know. People say they're fucking sick, so. The development was incredibly costly. It doesn't even have superiority over like other fucking equivalent fighter jets. It's insanely expensive. And it also has, it routinely has like failures, but I guess all jets technically do. But ultimately, look, Turks, you know what Turks want, dude? They don't want F-35s. They don't even want the S-400s.
No brain
They
on
just
so
want
far.
fucking PlayStation 5s, okay? So if you were to give up all the F-35s and then buy PlayStations and then offer that to Turkey, they would be much happier, I think. Dalga geçme abi, ağlıyorum her gün PS5 fiyatına bakarak. Oğlum ne ağlıyorsunuz amına koyayım? Oyun yok ki. Sadece şey var. İşte şimdi Elden Ring var yani, o çok iyiydi, o kadar. Başka ne oyun var amına koyayım PlayStation 5'de? Git normal oyununu oyna bilgisayarında, yani yapacak bir şey yok. Ne demek oyun yok lan? Yok amına koyayım, yok. Var mı? Bende var PlayStation 5, yok abi. Turks are mad at me because they're saying there are games. I'm telling them there aren't games. And they're saying no, there are.
You've got S-400s, but you're not getting them. We're a NATO ally. We know that you are desperate for air defense systems, but you're not getting ours. How difficult is that?
You can make the same case for other
Sanki
NATO.
bilgisayar alabiliyoruz. Orospu çocuğu seni sikerim ha. Ağzını topla lan. I mean, there's no P. Wait, what the fuck? Isn't Ahmet Alp literally a fucking bot? What is going on? That Turkish bot actually responding to me currently? What is happening? What the
Allies,
fuck?
with all due respect, that have much more military equipment than we do, and that have more sophisticated defense systems than even S-400. And why are they not being delivered to Ukraine?
Important perspective by Ibrahim Kalın there. Again, those crucial talks picking up in Turkey on
Bot değilim lan,
Tuesday. As we
sıkıntı
get
yok.
information on that, of
Devam
course, we will
ki.
bring it to you.
President Biden says he wants.
Bro, what the fuck? That's definitely the person behind it shows up in offline chat sometimes. He's nice.